Okay. All right. April, you ready? Okay. The Advisory Council on Hearing Aids meeting is convening at 9:09 a.m. on October 16th, 2020. I will now call roll. Rodney Walker.
Present.
Todd Landsberg.
Present.
Tiffany Parrott.
Present.
Lorraine. And Lorraine, if you'd say your last name for me, please.
Henriquez.
Henriquez. Okay, perfect. Okay. It's better if I hear it once than try to butcher it when I say it. And Doug Welsh.
Present.
Okay. Members, during the course of the meeting, please wait to speak until recognized. Once you've been recognized, please state your last name. Audience members are asked to send in an email to April Fleming at dhsoha.state.or.us so that we can keep a record of who's in attendance. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is now called to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Tiffany. I move to approve the agenda.
So I heard Tiffany made a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
This is Rodney Walker, I'll second.
And Rodney made a second. Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. I will now call roll, indicate with yay or nay. Rodney?
Yay.
Todd?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yay.
Lorraine?
Yay.
And Doug?
Yay.
Perfect. Okay, next item on the agenda is some introductions. So we do have two new members. Both Doug and Lorraine are new, and it is very odd that we're not here in person to be able to see each other. But I'll kind of lead this so that we don't all talk at once. But Doug, if you could give everybody a little bit about you, what you do, what made you interested in the board, and I'll kind of do that, and then we'll go around and have everybody kind of introduce themselves to you once we get through you and Lorraine. But Doug, go ahead.
Well, my name is Doug Welsh, and I've been doing this for quite some time. At one point, I was going to get out of it, but rethought the process, and actually I just love helping people for one thing, and I love the process with the state. I'm one of the proctors, so I just thought I'd make the next step and get on the board.
So Doug, I'm assuming that you're a hearing aid specialist then?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
Okay, because not everybody who's on the board is a hearing aid specialist, just so you know.
Yes.
Okay, Lorraine, would you like to fill everybody in a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Lorraine Henriquez. I live in beautiful Portland, Oregon. I am a hearing aid specialist, licensed in Oregon only. I am proud to be serving on the board. I was on the board for many years with the Oregon Hearing Society. I'm very involved in my neighborhood association. And I really enjoy my profession, and would like to say that we all have an interest in helping the hearing impaired, and we all have similar goals, and maybe from different paths, but just very excited to be able to contribute to the efforts of the council. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lorraine. So Tiffany, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes. My name is Tiffany Parrott. I live in Happy Valley, Oregon, and I don't even know how many years I've been on the board now. I'm ending my term. It feels like a long time, but I am a hearing instrument specialist and just love this industry.
Thank you, Tiffany. Todd, do you want to give a little information about yourself?
Yes, my name is Todd Berg. I'm an audiologist
reside in beautiful Coues, Oregon. Been practicing for about 10 years in my own private practice, where hearing aids in both ears, and very much value the new members, as well as looking forward to getting your opinions about these new issues that are coming up.
Perfect. Okay, and then I want to do a little lead-in for Rodney, just because this is Rodney's last board meeting, and Rodney has been with us, I do believe, about 8 years. So, Rodney, do you want to fill the board in a little bit about you?
Yes, I would. Thank you. This is Rodney Walker. I hold the one position called consumer on the board, and unfortunately, as I leave the board, there is no one in line to take my place, so you don't have a consumer participant. To be a consumer, you have to be a user of hearing aids. And I started using hearing aids in about 2000. And within 10 years, I went through all the most powerful sets and upgraded to 3 different hearing aids, and finally hearing aids would not work for me any longer. And in 2005 and 2006, I received bilateral cochlear implants. And my hearing skyrocketed to where I can now understand speech in quiet at 100%. Not so great in noise, and not so great maybe on this phone call. So I will get by and certainly clarify. So this is my end of my second term, coming up at the end of the year, and I live in Happy Valley, actually not too far from Parrot. And we both entered about the same time. I recall going through the courses for Newport members together. It's been a real pleasure to serve on the board, and I just feel it's time for me to move on, and appreciate the time I've had.
Thank you, Rodney. Yeah, that was fabulous. Yeah. And Tiffany also, her term ends the same time pretty much as Rodney's does. And so, Tiffany, we'll talk offline, so you don't have to put the pressure on now, but we would hope that you would be able to continue serving until we find you a replacement. If not, that's not that big of a deal either. You don't have to say anything at the moment. We will do that offline so that there's no pressure. So, if Tiffany chooses to continue serving until we replace, that would be great. If she chooses not to, this would also be Tiffany's last board meeting. So, but again, Tiffany, you don't have to respond right now. We do have a vacant, I can't say that word.
OT.
The OT.
Oh, no, ear and throat.
Yeah, the ear, nose, and throat doctor thing. And then also a hearing aid specialist position that's also vacant. So, all right, and then for Lorraine and Doug, so my name is Sylvie, which probably didn't say that. I'm gonna just assume everybody knows who I am. So I'm Sylvie Donaldson. I'm the director here. I'm the one closest to the phone, so the one that you'll hear the most. We are physically in the room more than 6 feet apart. And in the room with me is Ann Thompson. She's the policy analyst, and you'll get to know her very well. Also in the room with me is Cynthia. She is the person who works on the education and helps with the qualifications to make sure that people have the required education needed to get a license. She also does, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, some evaluations for individuals who may have come from another state or from, done some schooling from somebody where we need to do the evaluation of the classes. And then in the back of the room running the equipment and doing everything are April and Maria. And so basically today you'll only hear my voice, Ann's voice, and Cynthia's voice. They are sitting farther away from the microphone than I am, so when they do start talking, you can't hear them, just let us know. We'll rearrange here in the office, because we're trying to stay away from each other. So, all right. right, so those are introductions. So we are going to go into executive session. So we're going to enter number 4 on the agenda. And so for those of you who are on the phone, on the public phone number, just so you know, we're going to enter into executive session. We are currently on item number 4 of the agenda. And then we will come out, read another script, and go back into another executive session, which is item number 5. Then we will come out and unmute the phone, and you will be able to listen from 6 on down. You're welcome to leave your phone on and just listen, or just wait until you hear us start talking again, hang up, call back, whatever, it's up to you. We will leave the phone hooked up, so it'll always be on. But executive session 4 and 5 are going to be kind of lengthy. So that's your choice on what you want to do. But like I said, we will not hang up the phone, but it will be muted, so you won't be able to hear anything. Okay. Let me find my script. So the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, ORS 192.3559A, and ORS 40.225 for the purpose of considering information related to legal advice exempt from public disclosure at 9:21 a.m. on October 16th, 2020. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are required to leave the room. There are currently no members of the news media in attendance. All other audience members will be asked to leave the room, and how we do that is mute the phone. We will return to open session before taking any final actions or making any final decisions.
Yes, so that they know that it'll be at least an hour before this
Okay.
executive session is over. Thank you.
So for the public members, this first executive session, we're estimating that it will be at least an hour, if not more. But like I said, we will come back out in between 4 and 5 and then go right back in long enough for me to read another script and then go back into number 5. So, but we're going to mute the phone for at least an hour. The Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will now exit executive session and reconvene open session at 10:38 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. So audience members, we're out of the first executive session, which is item number 4. And we're going to go back into another executive session, which is item number 5. And Heather, do you have an estimate on how long you think that one will last?
I think we should plan on about an hour, at least, or it'll be at least an hour. It'll probably go over, but at least an hour.
So the estimate is item number 5 will take at least an hour, most likely go over than that, but at least an hour. So again, the phone will be muted. We will come back out of that session before we move on. And again, the phone line will stay on, but obviously it'll be quiet. So, all right, the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, ORS 192.3559A, ORS 40.225, and ORS 192.660H for the purpose of considering information related to legal advice, to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of the public body with regards to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed exempt from public disclosure at 10:39 a.m. on October 16th, 2020. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other audience members will be muted on the phone. There are no members of the news media in attendance, so all other audience members again will be muted on the phone, and we will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. Okay, the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will now exit executive session and reconvene open session at 11:58 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken. I have unmuted the audience phone, and representatives of the news media may once again report all board discussion and action, even though there isn't any news media here. All right, so let's move on. So we now are on item number 6, talking about the discussion of the tinnitus rule petition. So in your packets, we put things in date order so that there's kind of a flow there, but we have the June 8th of 2015 FAQ. So this is it was a public document that was put out on our website to try and help address the questions about tinnitus and the maskers and all that kind of stuff. And then there's another one right after it where we have updated it. So that one is dated July 9th of 2018. So this one currently includes the two rules that we have in place in it. And so this Q&A is FAQ, is what we call them, FAQs, is out on the website, posted on the website. And then the next section is the actual amended petition that we got from OHS. So I didn't know if we wanted to kind of go through page by page, if everybody's had a chance to read it and review it. But if you get to their page 4 is where they're suggesting in red their language to replace the language in 11. But they want us to either repeal, which means just get rid of, 10, and then also on the next page the definition or the adding of tinnitus for the referral to a medical professional. Those two. So either repeal those or amend the language to be what's in the red. So I don't know if anybody has anything that they want to say about those two options or the verbiage that they suggested. Okay, you guys are nice and quiet. Go ahead. Okay. So it's my understanding that, obviously 11, I'm on their page 4 of their petition. So number 11 just talks about when a licensee can obviously deal with the maskers related to tinnitus. And then the next page is where we say that tinnitus is a condition, obviously, that a licensee must refer a client to a physician. We've had this rule in place for a long time. It aligns with our statutes. But I don't know if anybody wants to talk about this rule at all. We'll get into the public comments and we can kind of address that there.
So Sylvia, are you open up for public comment?
No, public comment is not on the agenda until item number 10.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody want to address or talk about anything that's in the rule petition?
I'm reading it right now. I've read it before, so just give me 1 second. I'm on page 4. So it states the licensee shall be responsible for obtaining the training, knowledge, and skills necessary to perform tinnitus-related services, such as assessment and tinnitus symptoms. And they crossed out 11, which is in red, revised, of course, what they're looking at. Correct.
So part of when you do a rule petition, one of the things that the petitioner is required to do is give suggested language. So, they're giving us two different options. Well, if we were to grant the petition, they want us to repeal, which just means delete, number 11 in its entirety. And if not, then they want us to amend the language, which is still deleting how we have written number 11, and then inserting what they did in red.
Okay. So this still doesn't affect the laws, the statute. It's just the rules.
Correct. So the intent of what a rule is to clarify what is in statute. So statute and rules are both laws, and you have to abide by all laws, but the intent of a rule is to clarify or to give clarity to what is written in statute. And so that's what number 11 is allowing, for practitioners to do a certain piece of the tinnitus work that falls in line with what the definition of what licensee can actually do or not do.
Okay. I'm looking at next page, 5. And that has to do with referrals, of course.
Oh, sorry. For the record, who's talking?
Welsh. Doug Welsh still.
Okay, thanks, Doug.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Yeah, I understand, referring out for tinnitus, I always refer them out, but people, I get a lot of feedback from local doctors, ENTs, that why you send them out. I also get a lot of flack about the expense of going to the doctor just to get, used to what you have ringing in your ears. That's what I hear quite often lately. So I personally do not adjust for hearing aids, even in the past. Just my company doesn't do it. So
Yeah, again, I totally agree. We've had this conversation, and Doug, I know you're new, so we can continue having conversations, but we've had this conversation about, we understand that it is obviously expensive. It's a lot more work to refer out. However, the treatment and management of tinnitus does not fall within the current statutes. So that's why we, even with, and I can add it to the materials, but when I responded to the first petition, so they actually did a petition back in January, and it was missing some components. So I responded to that petition and said, here's what issues I have with your petition, and I also stated, here's the two FAQs that we've had, and talked about, I think twice in the letter, talked about how I would be willing to work with them if they would like to suggest some statutory language change to the legislature. I think, our biggest issue is that our statutes that relate to this profession are outdated and need to be changed or addressed or reworded or whatever they want to do in order to basically address new technology, address the tinnitus, address being able to, treat or manage tinnitus. Currently, based on our FAQs, we said, here's all the ways you could get tinnitus. I'm not saying that that's like the most common way of doing it, but here's all the ways you could get tinnitus, and you cannot diagnose or treat any medical condition. And so I get that some people just have ringing in their ears. They've known it. They've had it for 30 years. And they shouldn't have to go, we get those things, but I still think it comes back to what is written in the statute.
yes. Okay. thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, this is Rodney Walker. I give you my comments on this the way I understand it.
Go for it, Rodney.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Oh, okay. On the petition, the way I understand it, the suggested language in red, we have no way of knowing if this is in line with the statute or not. Although we have been given a definition that dealing in hearing aids does not include diagnosis and treatment. That was stated in June of 2015. And even though a licensee may obtain the training, I think this first suggested petition statement under 11 is not going to pass muster and align with a statute that we have. And I think the same would be true on the referral statement. We're up against the diagnosis and treatment definition, and this alternate reading is also seems to get into the area of diagnosis where you're determining the type of tinnitus, pulsating or unilateral. Therefore, as I understand it, the petition's barking up the wrong tree. They should be looking at the legislature to change the statute, because that's what we have to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. That was good. Todd, is there any comments you want to make?
No, I've read through all of the materials, and it's I do feel that it's in the patient's best interest, cost-wise, to allow hearing aid providers to access the tinnitus features.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and reading through a lot of these comments, it talks about, the cost and how inconvenient it is for an individual to have to go, like the comment that Doug just made about, send it off to a doctor. The doctor's like, well, why? You've had the same ringing for the last 30 years. Yes, we get that, but it's still, the statutes still don't allow for it, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, so.
That was Todd.
Yes.
Does it make any difference if an appropriate questionnaire was in place to determine the extent of a referral, or if it could be handled by the providers?
Okay, say that again. I didn't follow. So,
would establishing a questionnaire to give to patients make any difference?
are you talking about? So, if somebody says, "Oh, I have ringing in my ear," if that occurs, and as soon as you know that they may potentially have tinnitus, you have to have, because you can't do anything without them having a medical, you have to have a written recommendation from a licensed physician. So the instant you know that they have ringing in their ears and it potentially could be tinnitus, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Because it's suspected
Thank
or,
you for that.
yeah, it's either known or suspected tinnitus. All right, let's move on. Tiffany, I think you were driving, but Tiffany, did you have any comments that you want to make at this time?
I guess my only question is, because I feel like you do, we've talked about this so many times my head hurts, but knowing what's in the statute and kind of so we all know we disagree with it sounds like, if we were to make a change, then I guess what we have to be prepared for is that it could be challenged. Is that the issue?
That's a potential issue. You always have the potential of somebody challenging your statutory change. And I can kind of go into the discussion if you want to about how to get a statute changed. But one of the biggest things is that when this original issue came up, which was like 10 years ago, and Heather's been involved with our board for a long time, but we got, and Heather can add to this, is my point I was saying. So we wrote rules, and then we had, I think it was the Board of Audiology had submitted and challenged our rules because they felt, that board at the time, felt that anything to do with maskers and tinnitus was not within the scope of practice of a hearing aid specialist, that was their scope of practice. And so that's what kind of initially started all this. So one would be under the assumption that that board or their association or somebody may challenge the fact, if statutes get opened, may challenge the fact that they should be the only ones doing, quote, tinnitus anything. Or they may say, you know, I mean, that it would be my assumption that they might be against it. And I can talk about the process of getting a statute changed. And you want to have a consensus, otherwise no legislator is going to move anything forward if you don't have a consensus. So I think that's why nothing has been done statutorily changed, because I think that people are a little nervous of that fight.
Gotcha. Thanks, Sylvie.
You're welcome. Lorraine, I know this is a lot of information and a lot of stuff to talk about, but did you have any comments you wanted to make on the petition?
Yeah, I truly feel that the amended language is in line with the current statute and does protect the patient, and I also think protects them from financial burden. It also allows, the avoidance of, in my opinion, unnecessary expense and unnecessary burden on ear, nose, and throat professionals who absolutely have, most of them, no idea how to make recommendations regarding tinnitus masters. That's just not something I don't think they do in their daily work. So how are they supposed to be able to do that? It's very impractical. So my opinion is the language as is very impractical and not in the best interest of our patients who come to us for help. So therefore, I reading through all the language felt that this amended language was in the best interest of the majority of clients who come to help with their hearing. Of course, that's my opinion.
Okay. Doug, is there anything else you wanted to say before we move on?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. So let's continue on and get past the petition. So there is, after the petition, there is the letter dated August 10th of 2020. This is where we noticed, which is part of the process of how we deal with a rule petition. We sent notice out for public comment, and public comment was accepted up until noon on September 10th. And then those comments that we received are in your packet. However, we did receive some comments that were after that we did not include because they did not reach the timeline. And so you guys have to make let's have a little discussion here. So if you want to include those comments, we have to open the comment period back up for everybody. and give them notice and time to comment, then we can include those late comments. If you choose to do that, you must meet and make a decision about this rule petition prior to October 29th. And since today is the 16th, that is an extremely short turnaround to be able to open rules back up and for you guys to meet and for us to make, because you have to make a decision and then which is a recommendation to me, and then I have to actually respond to this letter, which would mean that you're going to have to meet way before October 29th because I won't be able to write a letter all in one day, the same day that you meet. So, is there anybody interested in opening the public comment back up? That's a whole lot of silence, so I would assume that's all a no. Okay. I just want to do a straw poll because it makes me feel more comfortable when everybody's on the phone. Rodney, would you like me to open the public comment back up?
No, I do not wish that.
Okay. Todd, would you like me to open the public comment back up?
No.
Tiffany?
Nope.
Lorraine?
No.
And Doug?
No.
Okay. Okay, so behind that letter is the report that Ann wrote. It's dated September 10th, 2020. And Ann is in here if you have questions, but I'll just continue on if you don't. So this is her summary of the report, or her report of the public comment. And then there's also all the public comment in here, so she just cuts and pastes because she doesn't want to interpret what anybody has said inappropriately. So you'll see through here that she just cuts and pastes all the information that she got. And I know that you had this in advance, so hopefully all of you have read this, but I didn't know if anybody had any questions on any of this stuff. And for those of you who've been around dealing with this current rule for a while, we've had these conversations. They're still, the comments are still the same about, it's expensive and why can't we just do this? We've been doing it before, they're the exact same comments that we get almost every time. But we do have to consider all these comments, and so I have read through all of them, and I hope you have too. But if nobody has any, there's also one from the, what is that, Able Hearing? Is that an association?
No, that was this is Ann, counsel. That is when folks send emails, sometimes they have almost like letterhead on their email.
Gotcha, okay.
And that was attached to the one above.
Gotcha.
I don't even take out
gotcha. Nope, you're golden.
any of their materials.
You're golden. All right, does anybody want to talk at all about any of the public comments and to address any of it specifically? More than we already have. Okay. So, where's my, I have a list somewhere. Of all the things, Heather, is there a list of things that you want to go through that we need to discuss before the board actually votes whether to deny or grant? Isn't there like all the things that they need to...
I have are you talking about the choices they have, Sylvia?
No, not the choices, all the things they need to consider. They considered public comment.
Yes.
They considered the language of the rule. They've considered the statutes. Is there anything else, Heather, that you want them to talk about?
Thanks, Sylvie. This is Heather Vogelsong, the attorney with the Oregon Department of Justice. I'll just point to the requirements, the A through F requirements, and list them off. And then that way, if the board has any further comments on those issues, they can talk about it. First one being the continued need for the rule. they may want to talk about whether they see a continued need. The second one being the nature of the complaints or comments received concerning the rule from the public. Sounds like they've gone through that with the public comments that they received. The complexity of the rule, the extent to which the rule overlaps, duplicates, or conflicts with other state rules or federal regulations, and to the extent feasible with local government regulations. The degree to which technology, economic conditions, or other factors have changed in the subject area affected by the rule. And then the statutory citation or legal basis for the rule. So if they have any further comments on those things as pieces that they've considered, then they may want to make comments on those.
So I'm going to go through the list. Of the things that Heather just listed, Rodney, is there anything else that you would like to say?
This is Rodney. No, I think we've been through most of this, even in prior board meetings, and some of this we've discussed before. I feel like we need to continue the rule. Looking at these points A through F, the nature of the complaints are consistent with before. So I don't see there's a need to discuss these.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. Todd, is there anything that you want to add after Heather gave her list?
No, I'm fine.
Perfect, thank you. Tiffany, is there anything else you would like to add?
Nope, nothing more.
All right, thanks, Tiffany. Lorraine, is there anything else you would like to add?
No.
All right, and Doug, anything else that you would like to add?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay. So, we are now to the point on the agenda, which is item number 7, which is where you have to vote on the tinnitus rule petition. So you have some different options. So you guys can, I'll try and go through them. So you can either deny it, just full-fledged deny it and be done with it. You can deny it, but further discuss the potential of a rule change. You can deny it, but enter into the rulemaking process with the intent of using some different language than what the language that they had used. You can grant the petition. You can either grant it to, what granting it means accept, do what they're asking you to do. But you have to choose between whether you want to repeal those 2 sections like they're asking, or whether you would like to amend the 2 sections that they're suggesting, and using their suggested language. But you do have to vote, so somebody would need to make a motion, somebody would have to second it, and then you all do the roll call and you'll vote. You do not have to agree, this is why we vote. So if somebody makes a motion and you do not agree with it, we still have to go through the process, but then you can vote no. If it does not pass, then somebody else can make a motion, then a second, and then we do a vote and we move on. So be assured you get to make your own decision. You can vote however you want. If it does not pass, then we will just keep having this discussion until we get to where something does pass. So if somebody would like to make a motion, and remember to state your names, because now is when we're very clear on the record. If somebody would like to make a motion, I would entertain that. And I'll be quiet until somebody finally does.
Well, this is Rodney. I will entertain a motion.
Go for it, Rodney.
And I move. Pardon?
Oh, sorry. I'm doing what I told everybody else not to do, to talk at the same time you were talking to talk. So I'll be quiet.
I'm going to state my motion. I move that we deny the petition in its entirety.
Okay, a motion has been made. Do we have a second? Well, I guess if we don't have a second, then it just doesn't go anywhere. Would somebody else like to make a motion?
This is Doug Welsh. I would like to accept the petition, but would like to see some rewording.
So that is not an option. So if you accept the petition, which means you grant the petition, so what you can do is you can deny the petition and then enter into the rulemaking process, which would mean that you would use different language. Am I correct, Heather?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yes, so if you accept the petition, you move forward with their language. But if you had different language that you wanted to propose, then you could propose that separate from the petition.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and accept the petition.
So you're making a motion to grant the petition, Jesus, tongue-tied, to grant the petition. Do you want to grant it with the intent of repealing the language, or would you, because there's two different options there, or do you want to grant it with the amended language, meaning the language that they used in red? You have to clarify, Grant. Doug?
I just changed, repealing it. Just the language.
Just deleting, so you would prefer just that number 11 is deleted and blank, so there is no more 11. And then the, quote, referral, the word tinnitus, is also deleted.
No, I don't want that.
Oh, that would be what a repeal is.
I want to go ahead and accept it the way it is.
Oh, do you want to leave the rules 100% alone the way they currently are?
I want to use their wording.
Oh, the wording in red?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what your motion would be then is to grant the petition with the amended language.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so that's I keep saying Grant. That is Doug's motion. Is there anybody who would like to second that?
This
This is Todd. I'll second that.
So I heard Todd first. Sorry, I don't know why. I think I heard Lorraine in there too. So I heard Todd say he wanted to second it. So we have a first and second to grant the petition, which means that the language that currently is set in place in rule would be deleted, and the new language that they suggested in red would be the replacement. So that's what's on the made a motion. And I'll go through and call roll. Whether you agree with that, you say aye. If you disagree with that, you say nay. So Rodney Walker.
And Sylvia, if I can interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
Rodney.
Sorry, Rodney. Hold on a second. Heather has something she would like to say.
And I just want to clarify that it would be to enter into rulemaking with that language. This isn't a vote on the final rule language, just to enter into rulemaking with that language. Thank you.
Oh, yes, that is very true. So this would start the process of us opening the rule. Mind you, for one, the board is making a recommendation to the office. Then the office would get that recommendation in consideration. But the process would then start the rulemaking process, which means that we would have to you'd have to meet again. You'd have to vote on proposed language. We'd have to give a timeline and all that kind of stuff. Then when we put the proposed rules out for public comment, we get all those comments back. You meet again. You go through all those comments, and then you vote on permanent rules. So this would start that process. So, okay. Any questions before we do the roll call? All right. Sorry, Rodney. Rodney, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask, but yay or nay?
This is Rodney. I vote nay.
And Todd?
Aye.
Tiffany?
I.
Lorraine?
Aye.
And Doug?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries. So the motion is, and just want to clarify for everybody, that the council is recommending to the office to accept the language that the, to grant the petition using the verbiage that is in their petition. Heather, is there anything else that you want to say about this?
Nope. What you said is correct. It was that they voted to recommend to HLO to grant the petition to enter into rulemaking with the amended language that's in the petition. So that was their recommendation to HLO.
Perfect. Okay. Moving on. Let's get to director's report. Okay. So we'll get into a lot of stuff now. You guys can just listen and sit back and relax and enjoy. So the staffing around the office, I'll give a little bit of updates on that. So you guys are pretty used to getting emails, not necessarily Lorraine or Doug, but you're pretty used to getting emails from Maria. However, Maria is switching over to a different position, and April is learning her duties and taking over. So April is actually sitting here today. So I just want to make sure that you understand and get used to the fact that Maria is going to hopefully start fading out of that, but April is then going to start taking over. So you'll start getting emails from April. If they're, like I kind of said earlier, I don't remember who all was on the phone when I was saying it, but make sure that you have added both April and Maria to your quote contacts, because then it won't go in your junk mail. State email is kind of unique, and some servers don't like how state email addresses are written, because they're used to, like at yahoo.com or at comcast.net or whatever. Ours are a little bit different than that, so a lot of those servers will just automatically junk it. So that little thing there. The other thing is we're on a statewide hiring freeze. As most of you already know, we are in the middle of a pandemic. We also have had some major wildfires that have caused some chaos in our state, which means revenues are down and revenue sources need to be put in other directions. So the whole state is pretty much on a hiring freeze, which means that we normally have 34 positions. Currently we have 7 vacancies. So for us as a small agency, that is small office, that is a lot of staff. And when you have 7 vacancies, there's a lot of things that don't get done. The other thing I wanted to give you a quick update is, for those of you who've been around long enough, you already know this, but everybody, the 2 new board members, we administer, well, Doug knows this because he helps do it, but we administer the practical exams here at the office. We used to do them at an off-site location and have figured out a way of doing them here. But we have our exams scheduled out for 2021. So we'll have exams. We usually try to do them every three months. So we're going to do them January 11th, April 12th, July 12th, and October 12th. So that information's all will be posted out on our website. And also as a refresher, and I can get into a little bit more detail when we are talking about the financials, but we still have it to where retakes are at no charge. So they have to pay for their original exam, the whole entirety of it, and then they have to come back. If they do not pass all the different portions, they can come back and take different little portions, but we don't charge them for taking the exam all over again. Other thing is that we are working on getting a software called MS Teams. So we have the software, but part of it is needing also the equipment. So MS Teams is what the state is approving for, video conferencing. So hopefully, we'll have it to where, because we're not going to be able to come back to the office as a group and as board members for quite some time. So we're hoping to get some equipment to where you can see us and we can see you. So we have to get some specific computers, we have to get some cameras, because we still have to be in this boardroom because of Granicus, which is the recording equipment, because we have to record every board meeting because they're public meetings. We also have to make sure that there are the public is allowed to attend. That's the reason for having the 2 phones and then being able to listen. But hopefully we'll get that MS Teams and get all the bugs worked out of it, so we'll be able to start seeing each other soon. And then I'll move on. So COVID-19, touched a little bit about that, but we are currently open by appointment only. The intent of that is we have some of our boards are required to come into the office to take an exam in order to qualify for a license. So that's where those individuals have to make an appointment. If you want to renew, currently, if you want to renew your license, it all has to be done through the mail or online. Most of our staff are working from home. We do have a very limited number of staff that are here in the office. The other thing that, the other thing too is we're trying really hard to limit board meetings because of it. Having a board meeting then requires staff that are currently working from home all to come into the office and sit in this room and all sit together. So our goal is to limit the amount of exposure everybody has. And so we will limit board meetings if there isn't something that needs to be done. We obviously, you guys needed to do something, so you're obviously meeting, but we do have some other boards that, we'll contact the board members and say, make sure that they're comfortable with not meeting. Several of our professions, because we have 16 of them, also deal very closely with COVID-19. So some of them are just slightly busy, and so there's not as much of a need to have board meetings if it's not necessary. So the other thing is the office immediately upon the emergency that was declared back in March started working on rules trying to address some different scenarios. So the office put into place a rule that goes to all 16 boards and programs that says that if your license was active, meaning you were not late, as of the date of the emergency, which was March 8th, then the late fee, so if you became late during the declared emergency, the late fee is dropped down to $1 instead of, and it's for all boards, instead of whatever it is in their rule. And then we also enacted a rule that says not abiding by the executive orders is considered unprofessional conduct. Again, we have 16 boards and programs, and some of her rules, her executive orders were very specific about things you could or could not be doing. And so if you did not abide by those, we had the authority to, and we had the authority anyways, we just put it in rules so people were very clear that if you are not abiding by this, that's unprofessional conduct. Another rule that we put in place is that allowed all continuing education during this state of emergency to be done, obviously, either online, remote webinars, those kind of things, because of the fact that people weren't having face-to-face stuff because of the COVID-19. So, but you still have to get your continuing education, so it just allows for a lot of online stuff, and it also allows for self-study. And then there's also some very specifics in there regarding our boards that deal directly with COVID-19. And so if you want to include some specific training on COVID-19, we'll count that as some of your continuing education. Because there's, like I said, a couple of our licensees that deal directly with it. And then, of course, we adopted some rules that were specific to some of the professions directly. One of them is respiratory therapist, obviously. Respiratory therapy is one of the frontline people who are trying to deal with COVID-19, so we immediately wrote some rules that allow them to either reactivate their license or to get a provisional license if they were retired, if they were expired, or if they're trying to come from another state, because they were sending everybody to these specific hospitals. That kind of has phased out. It was more in the beginning. I think we got 6 provisionals that came up, and those licenses have all, because I think the hospitals have kind of figured out how to deal with stuff. So that's my COVID-19. It's been a lot of crazy times around here. Anybody have any questions before I move on? I talk really fast. That's the Italian in me. I'm sorry. So does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay. Let's move on. What's the next list on my... Okay, licensing and fiscal statistics. So in your slides, you will have... the first slide is talking about the licensing statistics. And for those of you who, if these are new, we have this weird... Our calendars, our years are not like anybody else's year. So when you say on this, it says quarter 1 of 2019, quarter 1 is actually July, August, and September of 2018. Because our years go from July 1 through June 30th of the following year. And I didn't do that, but I'm constantly trying to explain that to people, and it's just odd. But that's how the state government works. So this first slide shows your licenses issued, and then all the way over on the right-hand side shows renewals processed. And this is just statistics about what we do on a quarterly basis for you guys. Next slide shows the pass-fail rate for the exam broken out into the different categories. And hopefully you guys have all read through all this. So if you have questions, just stop me and we'll go through it. Next slide shows the license volume trends. And this is for the hearing aids specialist license broke over a long period of time. So quarter 1 of fiscal year 17 is July, August, and September of 2016. You had 249 on average for that quarter. So currently for quarter 1 of 21, which is July, August, and September of 2020, you have 233. Next slide just shows the broken out by age and gender. It's interesting that a majority of your licensees are like 50 or older. There's not a lot of youngins in there. That's just an observation. Yeah, and then temporary licenses, this is just showing the age and gender of temps. We put this in there. Obviously, you can get a temporary license once you have finished all of your training, but you have not yet finished all of your exams. So we throw this in there because this supposedly is your people who are new coming into the profession. They're waiting to pass all their exams, and then hopefully we'll have a permanent license. But even here, you've got 7 people that are 34 to 41. 3 that are 42 to 49, and 2 that are 50 to 57. And those are people new coming into the profession. It's interesting because it's different than a lot of our other programs. Trainees. So trainees are the individuals who are doing the program. So you do a trainee, then you get a temp, and then you get permanent. So this is your trainees who are even newer to this profession. And again, you still have one individual who's over the age of 50 who's coming into the program. That is very unique and interesting. But you got 5 people in the age group of 26 to 33. So you don't have anybody under the age of 26 who's wanting to come into the profession currently. Which is interesting. It's not right or wrong. It's just interesting. Because if you looked at your long-term trend one, you're pretty stable. I mean, yeah, it's a slightly different than it was, God, how many years ago is that? 5 years ago?
Well, this is Ann. Isn't that when we stopped requiring audiologists to have dual licensure?
Oh no, because that was a long time ago. That's when I first started. I bet you that was back in 2010.
Okay, so that'd be off the chart.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, I would say that was a while ago. Because I remember I was having to issue all the refunds. All right, next slide shows, as of October 9th, the exact number of permanent licensees that we had, temporaries and trainees. So as of that date, because everything says date and time, because it can change the instant we process an application, but that's what that slide shows. The next slide shows your financials, and it shows it again broken out by our weird calendar year. But it does actually, up in the blue on the top, give you the date, so it kind of helps you understand. And you guys are, for those of you who are new, you're considered, all of us are, all the boards are other fund funded, which means your funds, all the fees that we collect for any of your licensees, your applicants, your exams, all that kind of stuff, stays in your fund, and your fund then gets to, every year the balance gets to roll forward. The ultimate goal is to make sure that you have a decent cushion as an ending cash balance to cover the cost of something drastic that may occur. Something drastic would be a big case that needs to go before an administrative law judge, and it costs a lot because there's a lot of DOJ expenses involved. So that would be a big, unusual thing. Another big unusual thing could potentially be, as in this petition talked a little bit about, is lawsuits. Anything where somebody has challenged, maybe challenges the rule or challenges something, that could be a potential large fee. But what we ultimately want is your revenue and expenditures to be pretty much consistently the same with each other, because we don't want to bring in too much revenue on a regular basis, because then your cash balance is going to get too high. And then we don't want your expenses to be too high all the time, then you're going to go into the negative. So having where it says net operations, that's the line that we want to get as close to zero as possible. So last year you'll notice that the expenses were slightly higher than the revenue, and the revenue was a lot less than it had been previously. And part of that is giving the examination retakes at no charge. But we wanted that because you don't want a lot more revenue coming in than you have expenses. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then down in the gray area on the bottom that if you're like me, you probably need a magnifying glass to read, we'll give you percentages. So again, you guys are one of 16 boards and programs that the office has. So we have different assessments that we have internally in the office, so that when we get a bill or an invoice for something, that bill then gets divvied up either between all 16 for some things. Maybe it goes directly to this board or directly to a board if it's very specific for them. And then there's some things that only get paid by certain boards depending on what services they use with us. So, because the office itself does not have any money. So, for instance, your shared assessment, and this shows the changes over time. We try to change them every July 1 of every year, because the office, and I've been here 11 years, has never, ever, ever been the same every year, as in new licensing groups, new boards, boards merging. Every year something has changed where the office has changed. I think when I started we had 8. I think we had 8 boards and programs, so we're pretty much doubled in size now. Yeah. So then there's every legislative session something has occurred, and now that they're having sessions twice a year, so they have the regular session and then the short session, something has happened to our office every single year. So we try to readjust those percentages. So when you have the shared assessment, which is that top one, if you go all the way to the right, you'll see that it's 3.6% currently. So currently, you guys, this board pays 3.6% of anything that's a shared service. Shared service would be rent, utilities, any payroll for me, because I work for all 16 boards and programs. We do divvy the staff out based on what they work on, so not all staff do you pay 3.6% of, and I'll kind of go through that. Then we have small board, which is the next line down, which is where you guys pay 2.635% of. So there are several staff who work on things, we call small board anything other than cosmetology, because cosmetology is ginormous. And so we have 3 staff that don't work on cosmetology, they only work on small boards. And so that's where you pay that percentage of those 3. And then examinations. So not all boards have to take an examination through us. So we divvy out based on what boards do have an exam that we administer, and then how many licensees those boards have. So again, cosmetology is in there because cosmetologists have to take several exams in order to get licensure. So that examinations pool, you guys only pay 1.832% of. Cosmetology pays a vast majority of it, but there's 3 positions that are broken out into that category. They work on the exams, work on uploading the exams, proctoring exams. And so, Doug, you know, like Heather, you see her, and Corinthia, those two are in that pool because they focus more on the exams than they do anything else. And then the last one is inspections. So we can do inspections on your facilities based on, we usually do it only based on complaints. However, in statute, we have to do inspections for cosmetology and for body art practitioners. Your body art practitioners are your electrologists, body piercers, and tattooists. So you guys do not pay a percentage of those inspectors. We have inspectors that travel all throughout Oregon, but you guys don't pay for that because they're not out there inspecting your facilities. Any questions on the financials? Especially for you, for Lorraine and Doug, since this is new to you.
No.
Lorraine?
No.
Good, okay. Good, okay. Let's move on. So we are now on policy. We got and Cerinthia's in here, so she can, you'll have to, if you want to talk, Corinthia, you're going to have to move closer to the microphones. So we got, and I want her to talk, because she has the history of this, for those of you who haven't been around long enough. So we've got the, we got a letter, which I included in your packet. You got a letter from the state of Washington. And hopefully you've read this, but does anybody have any questions on this? Because Corinthia is going to give you a little bit of background on this, and but if you have questions prior to, then she can address it. No questions. Okay, Corinthia, move and let me know. Rodney, if you can't hear her when she starts speaking, just speak up and we'll rearrange where we're sitting.
So,
I'm hearing you fine.
I'll try to talk loud. This is Cynthia Murphy, the qualification analyst for the Health Licensing Office. So the Department of Health from the state of Washington has requested that we provide them with our practical examination. And one of the things in regards to history that what Sylvie is talking about is with other boards that we have in the office, for example, the Board of Denture Technology, we have shared our examination for that board in the past, and we have also worked very closely with the State Department of Health in Washington, going back and forth with written exams and practical examinations to eliminate barriers between the states to help licensees go from state to state. So that's one of the things that the Health Licensing Office advocates. In looking, so what they feel, Washington, according to their letter, feels that the IHS examination, the practical, is outdated, and this Oregon's examination was just updated in 2019 to include several sections, including the speech mapping, and then adding sections in regards to posting of symbols and scores for error and bone conduction to allow for individuals to use computerized audiometers. And so with the updated exam, it has sparked Washington's interest, and so it's something that the office is going to be doing is sharing our practical examination and the scoring criteria for the practical.
Anybody have any questions? This is Sylvie.
That sounds interesting, actually.
Yeah, this is Sylvie. You know, again, the 16 boards and programs. We do have a few programs that do not have a specific school, and along with Washington, and we've worked with Washington over the years for as long as I've been here, back and forth, with several different programs, not just hearing aid specialists, but, you know, it's like why, our opinion was why reinvent the wheel? And if we are consistent between our two states, it is easier for individuals to do reciprocity, or maybe potentially, if you live in the Portland-ish area, to have licenses in both states. So we have always worked with Washington on this kind of stuff, not just with hearing aids, but with other departments. So But we want to make sure that you guys are aware. We also know that, our exam is confidential, and so, but we're also dealing with Washington's equivalent of us. So they understand, because they don't want their exam compromised either. And we, in the past, have also worked with schools or associations, people who are not regulatory agencies like us. And if we do that, then we make them sign a confidentiality. So just wanting to reassure everybody that this isn't going to allow our exam just to, quote, be out there. So, any questions before we move on?
No.
All right, you guys are an easy group. I think you're a little overwhelmed with information today. All right, next on the agenda is the regulatory report. And Bob is not in here today, but I do have some details. So in the report in your slides, I'm on the one that shows 2013-2015 biennium, and then it shows the number of complaints received, the total remaining open, the total closed. And so for this biennium, it says 1 is still open. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit more about, we talked about it a little bit before, about how the state's on a hiring freeze and we have a lot of vacant positions. One of the positions that is vacant is one of the investigator positions for Bob. And so he's got one less person to do all the complaints for all 16 boards and programs. And so one of the things that he had done is he did some shuffling around of investigators, so that we can focus on trying to get these old cases closed. It doesn't mean that, so one of the things that he has to constantly do is readjust what cases investigators need to be working on, because they're like egregious, or somebody passed away. I mean, there's all kinds of factors. So it doesn't mean that this case is not important. And so the conversation I had with him is like, we need to get these wrapped up and closed. So he redistributed the work between the investigators. And so the investigator who took over all the hearing aid cases, he is currently in the final stages of writing the report for this one. So this one should be closed before our next board meeting. And then on the next one down, the 2015-2017 biennium, it shows that there are 7 cases still open. He actually has closed one of these since he run this report, so there's now only 6 open. And then 2 of those, the same investigator is writing that final report, and 2 of those should also be closed before your next board meeting. The next slide shows the 17-19 biennium has 19 cases still open, and the 2019-21 biennium has 14 cases open. And we're hoping with the reshuffling of duties of the investigators that he will be able to get through these cases a little bit more timely. And we're also hoping to get approval soon for being able to fill the investigator position. Any questions on the regulatory report?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we are on item number 9. So we have down, I don't even know couldn't tell you what slide I'm on right now, but it's the slide where it shows the 2021 meeting dates. So we have, and I have a calendar in front of me, so if you guys need to discuss it, but we are suggesting April 2nd and October 15th, both starting at 9 a.m. to be full board meetings. That does not mean that those are the only times that you can meet. If we have cases where we need you to make some decisions on, we'll schedule something in between there. If we have to work with the rules and need to schedule a certain board meeting to address rules, we can add that. Those kind of additional meetings don't normally have all the reports and all the policy discussion stuff. These would be full board meetings, and then we can always add a smaller board meeting in there later if we need to. But does April 2nd and October 15th of 2021 not work for anyone?
And then, of course, those are Fridays.
Yes, we try to keep you, let me make darn sure I got my calendar in front of me. April 2nd, yes. Because you guys like Fridays. Here's nothing. You guys, I'm going to say the one thing that I always hate when everybody says, that's the way you've always done it. So, but it doesn't mean you have to stay on Fridays. If Fridays don't work for everybody, you can change it, but you do have to understand it may not work for us because there's 16 boards and programs. But I have the calendar in front of me and we can talk about that if you guys want to.
This is Doug Welsh. Would Mondays be possible?
Oh, anything's possible. Your House Practical exam is on Monday the 12th. I'm looking at April. So okay, let's talk about this. So Doug would like to discuss Mondays. Rodney's done. Todd, are you comfortable with Mondays or do you want to stick with Fridays?
I would prefer Fridays, but I can rearrange my schedule.
All right, and Tiffany, I'm not going to put you on the spot again, but if this is not your, well, I'm not going to put you on the spot. Would you prefer Mondays or Fridays?
I would prefer Fridays.
Fridays, okay. And Lorraine, what would you prefer?
I can go either way. I'll say Fridays.
Doug, are you okay with leaving it on Friday, or are you strongly wanting to get it to Monday?
No, it's good. Friday's fine. This is Doug.
Well, you know what we could do, Doug, I don't know how far away you live, Doug, but if we make sure that our board meeting is on the Friday before the practical exam, do you live along?
No, I don't. I just live in Eugene.
Oh, okay. So would you prefer them not being close to the practical because then you're missing 2 days worth of seeing clients?
No, actually, Monday, we had that changed for a reason for Monday's testing. So let's just keep Fridays, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so does anybody have the issue with it being April 2nd and October 15th, which, like we just said, which are both Fridays, starting at 9 a.m.?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, if nobody has any issues, I would need somebody to make a motion, because you guys have to vote on this, somebody to make a motion to accept those dates.
This is Doug. I'll motion to accept Fridays, 2nd of April and October 12th. Or 15th, excuse me.
This is Tiffany, I second.
So I got Tiffany a second. That's all right. So a motion has been made and seconded. I will call roll, indicate with yay or nay. Rodney?
I'll abstain.
He doesn't. He won't be here, so he doesn't particularly care. Todd?
Yay.
Tiffany?
Yay.
Lorraine?
Yay.
And Doug?
Yay.
Perfect. Okay, we got 4 yays, so motion carries. Next item on the agenda, and this is for chair and vice chair. So you guys are going to have to discuss this because currently Rodney is chair. And as Rodney and I have stated, this is his last meeting. So Todd is currently vice chair. So you could discuss whether or not Todd would like to be chair, because Todd's time. Todd's got lots of time ahead of him. He's only on his first term, which goes until May of 22. So if Todd's willing, you can have that conversation. But you do need to vote on chair and vice chair for 2021. Nobody's talking. Todd, would you feel comfortable being the chair, or is that something you do not want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So that's fine.
Is anybody else interested in being the chair? You guys are an easy group. Well, Todd can't be both chair and vice chair, so somebody has to volunteer to be vice chair.
This is Doug. I wouldn't mind being vice chair, if that's okay.
That's up to you guys. Anybody else want to do it? See, Doug, nobody else wants to do it, so you just kind of, by default, become the vice chair. That's too funny. Okay, so if somebody would like to make a motion, and I don't want to move too fast ahead, if you guys want to talk about this. You guys are so funny. So I need a motion for somebody to make that puts Todd as chair and Doug as vice chair.
This is Lorraine. I'll make a motion to have Todd serve as our chair and Doug serve as our vice chair.
Thank you, Lorraine. Anybody have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, Tiffany seconded. Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. I'll call roll. Rodney? Rodney, are you still there?
Oh, sorry. Doesn't matter. I mean, I'll
Do what? Sorry, Rodney, I didn't hear what you said.
I'll say yay.
Yay, okay. Todd?
Yay.
Tiffany?
Yay.
Lorraine?
Yay.
And Doug?
Yay.
Perfect, okay. Okay, so now I have another script around here somewhere. So we are on item number 10. Already did it. All right, so item number 10. At this time, the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids will hear public interested parties' feedback. Members of the audience, please wait to speak until you've been recognized. I'll ask you a couple questions so we can get the record straight. Also, for any of you who are on the phone, if you will please make sure and email April, which is just to let her know that you were on the phone, so that we can have a record of all audience members who are in attendance at the board meeting, because that's one of the things that we need to do. If you would, I'm going to try to get a little cheat sheet that shows what April's email address is, because I don't know it off the top of my head.
Here, at the bottom.
Okay, it is April, A-P-R-I-L dot Fleming, F-L-E-M-I-N-G at DHS-OHA dot state, which is S-T-A-T-E .or.us. Okay. So whom on the phone would like to make a comment? And this is going to get awkward because everybody's going to talk at once.
It's Richard Giles. I'd like to make a couple comments.
So Richard, just remember that you're talking between two phones, and that Rodney's hard of hearing. So try to make sure that you're speaking a little bit clearly, enunciate your words, and try not to speak too fast.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Shall I go?
Yep, you can go.
Okay, 5 comments. First of all, I'm going to deal with the Washington examination for the practical section, and this is just for background information for your board members. I sat on the Washington Department of Health Board for Hearing and Speech for 2 terms, and they have been working with the International Hearing Society trying to update the licensing examination. The practical exam in Washington is only for the school, for the Washington Hearing Society's 9-month certificate program. the International Hearing Society. I also was president of the International Hearing Society, so I have some insight onto how that process is going. That examination that the International Hearing Society is working on should be completed and ready for release sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. As you know, writing an examination is very time-consuming, very expensive, and the International Hearing Society has decided that that is a priority for them now, so that's coming. Board, I know, would love to see the Oregon examination. Back when I was president of the Oregon Hearing Society, back in the dark ages, I was also proctor, and had recommended initially, as the Washington's rules were being written for the hearing aid specialist training program, that they look at the Oregon program, and at that point, Oregon was unwilling to share the examination. But this has been, probably 10, 15 years ago. Secondly, I would like to address or ask a question on the ruling process. Is that now going to be open to the public? In Washington, all rulemaking process is open to the public for public input, and I would like to be involved with that process as it goes forward. Secondly,
okay, hold on, Richard. Before you move forward, so anything that we do, whether it's the rules, the petition, it's any public comment, anything like that, are you on our interested parties list?
Yes, I am.
Then you will get any information that we send out. So you'll get notification of if and when we open the rules, when public comment is. So it's just because did you get the notice that we were doing public comment for the rule petition?
Yes, I did.
Then I
was one of the petitioners.
Oh, perfect. So then you'll get all that information automatically. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but the rulemaking process in Washington is actually live discussion as the rules are being formulated. And I didn't know if that was the same in Oregon as it is in Washington.
It is not. So there's a set amount of time that rules are open, no less than 28 days.
Is that process open to the public for interjection of possible language?
When there's public comment, your comment, because so say for instance, we were going to open rules and we said public comment is open from December 1st through December 31st. Any comment that you want to make, doesn't matter what that comment is, we will accept it between those days. So you could say, I don't like this language, here's what you should, here's the, whatever you want to say, you can say. Does that make sense?
Okay. I guess that answers my question.
Okay.
Thirdly, during this conversation today, many times it was referenced to the statute that forbids hearing aid specialists from addressing tinnitus. And no time during the conversation was that specific ORS mentioned. Could you tell me what ORS you're referring to when you say when it's addressing the tinnitus prohibition for hearing aid specialists to turn on the master and to make adjustments?
So this is Sylvie, the two Q&As or FAQs or whatever we call them, FAQs. They list the statutes that we talk about. So it's
I have those.
Yeah, so it's question number 2.
I have carefully reviewed the statute along with IHS legal counsel, and nowhere in there does that even remotely address tinnitus. So I'm just putting that in there for public record as things move forward. And then the last thing I had is, to address why there aren't a lot of young people coming into the hearing aid profession. Got some insight on that as I entered it when I was in my early 20s and now in my mid-60s, and so I'm exiting the profession slowly. This tends to be a second career for most people. In other words, someone who maybe served in the military, or someone who was in the education field, or someone who maybe was injured on the job in some type of manual construction. Those are the people we tend to see a lot come into our profession. A lot of them have hearing loss because that's how they found out about it. So it's kind of a background for your information when you made the comment that it's funny that there aren't young people involved in this profession.
I didn't say it was funny. I will clarify, I did not say it was funny. I said it was interesting. But yes, thank you very much for that information. That makes a lot of sense. Anybody else on the public phone wish to make a comment?
Yes, this is John Hesberg.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, my name is John Hesberg, and I'm General Counsel for the International Hearing Society, and I just would like to thank the board and staff for the deliberative process that you went through. I believe it was well thought out. I appreciate the rule, your clear consideration of the petition we submitted. And again, wanted to thank you for the process. I think your decision is absolutely consistent with the existing statute. As Mr. Giles indicated, we believe that the statute is just fine as is, and that the amended rule that proceeds through rulemaking with your recommendation really is in the best interest of the citizens of Oregon. Again, thank you all for all the time you spent on this.
Thanks, John. Anybody else have any comments? A whole lot of quietness, so if somebody was talking, they probably forgot to put their phone off of mute. Or there's nobody on the phone besides Richard and John anymore. Been a long day.
Actually, I have something for other work business today.
All right, so if nobody else wants to make a comment from the public, we're going to move on the agenda, and you will not have a chance to talk later. So if now is your time, if you want to say something. All righty. Okay, so we're going to move on from public comment. We're going to be on item number 11, which is other council business. Ann, you had something you wanted to mention?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the council. This is Ann Thompson, and I normally talk a lot more than I have today, so I'm giving everyone a break. When I was putting the materials together, I was so focused on everything, I completely forgot to add this. If we can get in the Wayback Machine, back in 2017, at the federal level, the Over-the-Counter Hearing Aid Act was signed. And that allowed for a new class of hearing instrument that had not yet been developed to be approved by the FDA. So folks wouldn't have to go to a hearing aid specialist or an audiologist or anyone to get this new class of hearing assist. It was supposed to be more complex than this assisted listening device, but not as complex as a hearing aid. And I've been following this very, very closely. I've learned a lot about the passive nature of the FDA, and they were supposed to have proposed regulations/rules out on August 18th of this year. It was actually delayed. And I have been watching and talking with the FDA, and they have not produced anything yet. So maybe they're not as afraid of deadlines as I am. I don't know. But I will promise to keep the council updated if I find out anything. If any new information comes out on a class of device, I'll be sure to let you know. So, thanks.
All right, this is Sylvie. One other subject I forgot to talk about under director's report is there's been comments made in the past about audiologists, interns wanting to obtain has a hearing aid specialist, I do believe, a temporary license, which then allowed them, I'm assuming, to do some billing or maybe work some independent. I'm not real sure what exactly the reasoning was. However, we did get, I do believe, one applicant for a person who was doing the internship to become an audiologist. And as you know, or you may not know, but as you know, we have in rule very specific what our approved program entails. So it talks about very specific what classes you have to take, what has to be in those classes, blah, blah, blah. So in our application process, we have a form that says you tell us how you got the 5 hours in this, 3 hours in that, 4 hours, and I'm generalizing this. And then we evaluate your education to make sure that it meets the standard that you guys have created in rule. So this individual that applied, and that we can get into details if you want, but the individual who applied did not meet the qualifications because they did not have all of the educational pieces that are required in our rules in order for an individual to obtain a license. Does anybody have any questions on that? I just want to give an update on it, but you're welcome to ask questions if you have any.
This is Doug Welsh.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember seeing the recorded session, and so are they just looking for just a temporary license or a training license, or are we looking at the whole shaboom?
What they were wanting was a temporary license, and what they were wanting is the education that they took to become an audiologist intern or extern or whatever it is. They wanted that to qualify so that they could get a temporary license with us, so that, and I'm not, this is where I'm not 100% sure of why, but I do believe it so that they could get some sort of insurance reimbursement or bill for insurance, or be able to do something with limited supervision. So as you know, once you obtain a temporary license, you're have more of indirect supervision versus more hands-on with your supervisor when you're a trainee. So all those things kind of played into effect, but the point is that the education that person had did not specifically cover every single spot of your guys's, or in rule, the hours and classes that you have to get in order to get the temporary. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I'm just wondering why, they're allotted just a small process for a temporary amount of time, why don't they just get the permanent license? Because I thought audiologists at one point went away from the state's license.
I don't believe their intent was ever to get a permanent HAS license. I think the intent was to have a temporary license while they were still working on their hours for the audiology, but then be able to bill and get some money or revenue coming in. That, I think, is their intent. Public members, please mute your phone. Who's on the public?
It's John and Richard.
Richard or John, can you please mute your phone? Sorry. Okay.
So under that situation, that is allowed in a temporary till they get their license in an audiology program.
Absolutely. If they meet the requirements that we have in place for a temporary license, anybody, doesn't matter whom you are, if you meet those requirements. So those requirements are that I can get my book open, but it's all the requirements.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of what they are.
Okay, yeah.
So,
It
just sounded, so they did not meet the requirements then?
The individual that applied did not, because they were missing some of the course hours that we require.
Okay.
The specific course hours. They probably had more numbers of hours, but they were missing some specific classes that are very specific in our rule.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about before we adjourn? Okay, crickets.
No, not yet.
Okay, so
if I were to bring a new, say that we wanted to do real ear measurement testing during a practical, how would I approach that issue with the Oregon State?
So
I think we're trying to add another practical portion onto the test sooner or later. Is there a process we need to go through, or just talk about it behind closed doors?
Well, Corinthia is the one that you need to get in contact. She knows how all of that works. So if there's something that any board member or the public, anybody and everybody wants to make a recommendation on relating to exams, they need to get in contact with Corinthia. So Corinthia knows the process of how to change an exam, what's in and out of statute, what can and can't be done, all that stuff, and then we'll go from there.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Any other board business? Okay, I'm going to read the script to adjourn. However, do not hang up until I talk to you. So the Advisory Council on Hearing Aids meeting is adjourned at 1:28 p.m.